and we're going to read chapter 1. The book of Esther and chapter 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this was the Ahasuerus who reigned over 127 provinces, from India to Ethiopia. In those days when King Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the citadel, that in the 3rd year of his reign he made a feast for all the officials and servants, the powers of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces were before him. When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the splendour of his excellent majesty, for many days, 180 days in all. And when these days were completed, the king made a feast lasting 7 days for all the people who were present in Shushan the citadel, from great to small, in the court of the garden of the king's palace. There were white and blue linen curtains fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple on silver rods and marble pillars, and the couches were of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of alabaster, turquoise and white and black marble. And they served drinks in golden vessels, each vessel being different one from another, with royal wine in abundance, according to the generosity of the king, in accordance with the law of drinking was not compulsory, for so the king had ordered all the officers of the household that they should do according to each man's pleasure. Queen Vashti also made a feast for the women in the royal palace, which belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Bizpah, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zehar, and Carcass, 7 eunuchs who served in the presence of the king Ahasuerus, to bring Queen Vashti before the king, wearing her royal crown, in order to show her beauty to the people and to the officials, for she was beautiful to behold. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command, brought by his eunuchs. Therefore the king was furious with anger. His anger burned within him. Then the king said to his wise men who understood the times, for this was the king's manner toward all who knew law and justice, those closest to him being Castana, Sethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, who had access to the king's presence and who ranked highest in the kingdom. What shall we do to Queen Vashti according to the law, because she did not obey the command of the king Ahasuerus, brought her to be brought by the eunuchs? The Memucan answered before the king and the princes, Queen Vashti has not only wronged the king, but also all the princes and all the people who are in the provinces of King Ahasuerus. For the queen's behaviour will come known to all women, so that they will despise their husbands in their eyes, when they report, King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought in before him, but she did not come. This very day the noble ladies of Persia and Media will say to all the king's officials that they have heard of the behaviour of the queen. Thus there will be excessive contempt and wrath. If it pleases the king, let a royal decree go out from him, and let it be recorded in the law of Persians and of the Medes, so that it will not be altered, that Vashti shall come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal position to another, who is better than she. When the king's decree, which will make this proclamation throughout all his empire, for it is great, all wives will honour their husbands, both great and small. And the reply pleased the king, and the princes and the king did according to the word of Memucan. Then he sent letters to all the king's provinces, to each province in his own script, and to every people in their own language, that each man should be master in his own house and speak the language of his own people. If we can turn back to Esther chapter 1. Time's always been a big thing for me. I've loved it. I remember going to my grandma's when I was come up from Anglesey, and in my grandma's was a clock over the fireplace. Tick, tock, tick. Time just seemed to stand still at my grandma's, and it was all the sound of this clock. I loved it. We can't slow time down, and we can't speed it up. Time comes in at 60 seconds a minute. In the summer holidays, we went to Powys Castle. And in Powys Castle, they've got Tompion clocks. They are the best of the best clocks. You go to Oliver's house, and you'll see clocks everywhere. We have the Bible study there sometimes, and it's ping, ping, ping. When it's 9 o'clock, we all know because all the bells are chiming. But he's got these magnificent clocks. And at Powys Castle, not only have they got the clocks, but they've got a Tompion regulator that regulates the time. Clocks have a regulator on, so if it's going too fast, you can lift it up and slow it down a bit, or you can bring it down and make it go a bit faster. It has a regulator on. The Lord operates in time, but it's a different type of time. I got a clock off one of the lads at church, and it had its own swinging pendulum. He says, whatever you do, don't put it, it's got to be somewhere that's flat. I thought, what do you mean flat? Just as a clock. No. If it had a slight out, it won't swing backwards and forwards properly. It's got to be absolutely flat. And he used to say to me, it's precision engineering, Graham. God's clock is precision engineering. It doesn't need a regulator. And tick, 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 it goes every day. Tick, tick, tick. Always on time. Never late. And always for me. And always for you. How does he do that? Sometimes it's like pieces on a chessboard. As we'll see in our story. Tick, 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 and then tock. Esther 6 verse 6. What shall be done for the man who the king delights to honour? Haman's come, and he's come into the court, and he wants to get Mordecai hung. If you know the story. The king has read the annals, the king's in his heart. What should be done for the king who delights to honour? It's going to be Mordecai. And then he asks Haman, who's in the court? It's Haman, come in. What should be, before he says, I want to hang Mordecai, what should be done for the king who delights to honour? It's me. Oh, set him on a horse. Set him in front of all the people. Put him in the king's clothes. Let him be shouted out that this is the man who the king delights to honour. Yeah, right, go and get Mordecai. Tock, bang. God's been working all this out like a clock. And Haman comes in, rushing in to get him. Everything's changed round. It's like pieces on a chessboard. Check. And then it comes up again in 7 verse 5. And it's not check then, it's checkmate. Tick, 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 tock. Where is he? And who is he who dares presume in his heart to do such a thing? Chapter 7 verse 5. When it's announced, when Esther says it is this man here who is planning to murder my people. Tick, 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 tock, bang. Will he also assault the queen when I'm in the house? God has been ticking, tick, tick, tick. He's been working everything together, moving everything round. Growing up in the Westwell household, that were my household, Mum and Dad went to church all the time, took me with them, me and my sister. We hated it. In fact, when my mum and dad used to be in the front room with the church having a prayer meeting, we wanted to go in and turn the music up and wake them up. Thought, what are they doing? But all we got was Bible. church, Bible, Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Bible studies. And tick, 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 God was working in my life. And then all of a sudden Morris come along, my sister's husband. He was a man, he had his own business, he played on the same stage as Status Quo as a backup. And me and my friend Gary said, wow, this guy is the deal. When my dad gave him tracts, he took them to the pub and he was making aeroplanes of them, throwing round. And I thought, he told my sister, you ever become a Christian, I'm finished. I'm walking out. We thought, this is him. We went on holiday with him. And me and Gary used to be there outside of the window breaking his cigars, locking him out. And he went, we had great, but he was the man. My dad were never getting to this guy. Tick, 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 tick. Down in Rossnagar, my dad comes in. Morris has become a Christian. Boom, talk. God had been working. He'd built this man up in my life, in my eyes, and my mates' lives. Wow, no way will this man ever become a Christian. Bang. And you see how God works. Tick, 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 tick. When you come to the book of Esther, you've got to understand God's providence. You've got to understand that God's ticking away in the background. He's moving all his people into position. Or you may come to the wrong conclusion of the book, as some people have, that this book shouldn't be in Scripture. Why? Because there's no name of God. The name of God is not mentioned. But we like watching Portrait Artist of the Year. And they'll put the easel up and this famous person will come in and they'll start painting away. And sometimes as you're watching them paint, you go, wow, they have got it straight away. Sometimes you're thinking, who is this? When they turn their easels around, you're feeling sorry for the person. You look at it and go, well, you've got my dress right, or you've got my glasses right, because they've got nothing else right. Spurgeon says when you do a portrait, sometimes it's important to have the name of the person who it is at the bottom. Otherwise, you'd never know who it was. But when you look at the book of Esther, you know who's working here. Doesn't need a name on it, it's God working in the background. There's no mention of God, there's no miracles in the book, but God is on every page. In every detail. History is his story. It's his story. Providence, what's the meaning? Pro is Latin for beforehand. Videns, Latin for video, to see. So to see beforehand, that's providence. So this is God, he's working in this book and he sees beforehand. Alistair Begg says it's like a melodic line in Scripture, providence. You'll read it and you'll think, you'll hear it. Like in the story of Joseph, putting him in prison, putting him into the far country. And then all of a sudden he's working his way up. He's now made Prime Minister. God's working, I hear it. Providence. God's been working before. And what happens through Joseph? All his brothers, his family are saved. As the famine comes, God has used him. You did it for evil. You hated me and it hurt. But God did it in his providence to save you and me. Yeah, you made your decision. And Ruth and Boaz. Naomi goes into the far country. And Ruth comes back with Naomi. She won't be separated from it. And she goes out just to glean in a field. She could have gone in any field. But she went in not just to a field, into the part of the field that belonged to Boaz, the kinsman redeemer. Tick, 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 tick. There wasn't a sign saying, go into this field and take the middle part. It all worked because he was in total control of it. Only God has the power to do this. I remember going to work as a policeman 6 o'clock in the morning, had a load of lights on my bike. And as I come up to a junction in Farnworth, there was a guy coming out here and I thought he'd seen me. And I could see he was coming straight for me. I knew he was coming. I could see beforehand, but I couldn't stop it. He sees it beforehand, and it never gets to a stopping situation. Never infringing on man's liberty, He makes his own decisions and never taking away man's responsibility. He does it. They did it to Joseph because they hated him. God did it for the good. But they made their own decision. He is the script writer. Oliver said in one of his talks not long ago, if there's one rogue molecule in this universe, providence is finished. One rogue molecule that doesn't do what God says, it's over. His sovereignty is finished. Everything is in his control. It's humbling. Can I commend Oliver's series on 35 sermons about God? It's fantastic. If you want to know about God and learn about God in depth, it's absolutely wonderful. And once you know them things and you bring them into your life, wow, what it does for you. He said this, he doesn't just know about or predict what is yet to be. He is already in what is to be. Quote, I'm in the future and what is going to happen. And I'm outside of it. I'm beyond it as well. I'm underneath it, above it, all around it. It doesn't contain me, but I contain it. And all that it is. Wow. Isaiah 44. Is there a God besides me who can proclaim as I do? Set in order for me the things that are coming and shall come. How comprehensive is that? Psalm 139 verse 13 and 16. When we look inside the womb, we see a fetus. Man's clever now, he can see a fetus and he can see all the wonderful things that go on. Whereas before, they couldn't see anything. Now they've advanced, but they don't see as God sees. For you formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance being yet unformed. And in your book they were all written, the days fashioned for me when as yet there were none of them. There's no wiggle room there. There's no wiggle room there. The days fashioned for me when as yet there were none of them. How comprehensive is that? So, when the letter falls on the doorstep, as did in my house when I was preparing this sermon, and it goes bang, and we're still not over that letter, that's 4 weeks ago. When it drops on the mat, when Louise told me, she said, I know you've been away and I didn't want to tell you, but this has come. And I went, oh, what are you preaching about? Providence. This has got, I said to Louise, this has got to be from him. And everything goes, right, let's take it to him. Because it's got to come from him. Or when the letter, you get the call back from the doctors, can you come in? It's just about your bloods. Palpitations. It's from him. It's ordered. It's no accident. Even the call at that time of day and what's going on. Thomas Watson says in The Body of Divinity, suppose you're in a blacksmith's shop and you see several sorts of tools, some crooked, some bowed, others hooked. Would you condemn all things because they do not look good? The smith makes use of all of them in doing his work. This is as it is in the providence of God. They may seem crooked, they may seem strange, but they all carry out his will. John Murray says, providence sometimes is likened to a dark, impenetrable abyss. And when I think of that, I think of Jacob. Lost Joseph, lost his wife. He has nothing. He can see nothing that is going for him until he rides into Egypt and sees Joseph coming out, his son that was dead, and everything was finished. He has the power to do this, and only him. For me, it was when cancer struck. I had the biopsy done at my first meeting at Christie's. Before the chemo, I remember going in and sitting with my wife and waiting for everything. And I remember the doctor saying the side effects, and I would have to carry a card with me in case I collapse, so they would know how to treat me and where to send me. At this point, I had to leave and let my wife take the details. Hospitals were my worst nightmare, and on top of that, I was going to be so unwell. Blacksmith shop. He was starting to bend me. He was starting to put me in the furnace. The hammer was out. Things were happening to me I didn't want to happen. But now when I look through the rear view mirror of my life, what stands up like Eiffel Tower? Cancer. And how God kept me. That thing that I thought was so bad for me, how he used it in his providence to give me an anchor in life. The biggest foundation I've ever had. Look at what I did in cancer. If ever I'm thinking about, hey, remember how I looked after you. Remember how frightened you were. And what I did. So as we enter the story, we've got a king, a queen, an orphan girl, her uncle, and wicked Haman. And it's how God saves his people from the upcoming doom, the upcoming annihilation, and how God's at work in the background, bringing all his people, moving all his places on the chessboard. Nobody knows about it. Tick, 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 until it comes to the time. We see God at work. But while this is happening, as it is in our lives, we have to wait. And we have to trust his word. We have to do. Proverbs 21 verse 1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. Like the rivers of water, he turns it whichever way he wishes. So that's the king's heart. Is in the Lord's hand. Like the rivers of water, he turns it wherever he wishes. So the Prime Minister, the President of America, Donald Trump, is in the king's hands. And he's going to turn him whichever way he wants to. Proverbs 19:21. There are many plans in a man's heart, nevertheless the Lord's counsel will stand. Never forget it. In its historical context, the Persian Empire is in full swing. Ahasuerus is the king. It's the second in the vision of Daniel. It's the most powerful army on earth at this time. It covered 127 provinces from Libya in Africa to Pakistan in Asia. There's no mention of God in book. But there's plenty of mention of Ahasuerus or Xerxes or the king. No mention of God, but he is mentioned or referred to 175 times. Alistair Begg says, Ahasuerus is a big deal. Or he thinks he's a big deal. Archaeological remains have writings on, I am the King of Kings. This is what he wrote. I am the King of Kings. I am Xerxes, the great king, the only king, the king of all countries which speak all kind of languages, the king of this big, far-reaching earth. It's thought that the sun didn't set on the kingdom, it was so large. The summer palace was in Shushan, which is in modern-day Iran. That seems poignant, doesn't it? Darius, his father, had conquered Babylon. Remember Belshazzar's feast? You've been weighed in the balances and found wanting. That was his father who came in and attacked. And Ahasuerus, his father Darius, attacked this rising empire of Greece. It wasn't Alexander the Great, but he was coming. Darius attacked Greece and he failed in the famous Battle of Marathon, where a man ran the length of the marathon to get help. And he amasses a great army to return, to get vengeance on Greece, but he dies. So his son Xerxes takes over. This is all in the beginning of this book. This is what is happening. Firstly, he defeats Babylon. Then he turns his attention to Egypt. And now he's going back for the conquest of Greece. So what is going on in chapter 1 this big feast to raise funds, to get support for his battle that he's going to be going with against Greece. Between chapter 1 and chapter 2, I think there's 4 years where he goes on his conquest to Greece. And this is all to raise funds for it. Daniel has been prominent in the lives of Nebuchadnezzar and Darius, the great prophet, but he's been dead for 30 years now. And there's much anti-Semitism. You watch this man who's coming up, Haman. The Jews would have been watching him. He hated the Jews. And there was a lot of anti-Semitism going on. You read back in, I can't remember which prophet it is, but they send a letter in to Ahasuerus saying that these people are rebuilding this temple. I'll tell you now, they're going to be trouble. They will not pay tribute to you if you let them build this temple and the work is stopped. There's much anti-Semitism going on. Ahasuerus is not a happy man. He has fits of rage. No woman was safe. Not his brother's wife, not his niece, despite his concubines. In fact, I think it's 15 years from now, he is slain in his own bed for sleeping with his generals' wives. It is said by the historian Herodotus that he consoled himself with sensual pleasures. He was an absolute monarch, judge and jury. Only one thing could bind him, and that was his own words. The law of the Medes and Persians. Vashti, she was the queen, but as it mentions, it was Ahasuerus' palace. In Ahasuerus' kingdom. It's all about him. The queen, many believe, was pregnant at this time with her son. She is held in high esteem even to this day as a woman before her time, standing up to the king. But she was a murderer. Herodotus tells us, someone was getting close to the heart of her king. And it's just, the historian tells us that she had her cruelly murdered. So that is Vashti. Now there were 2 captives from Israel, an orphan girl Esther and her uncle Mordecai, who had taken her as his own. Now they weren't captives that had been taken from Israel, these were second generation. Insignificant captives in a kingdom of Ahasuerus of approximately 50 million people. And they were silent. Her Jewish name, Esther's Jewish name, was Hadassah, the myrtle tree, which gave out a fragrance, which was a lovely tree. Her Hebrew name of Esther means, I have hidden myself. Isn't that unbelievable? I have hidden myself. She was lovely and beautiful, and she obtained favour of all who saw her, we're told. Not all doors beauty opens should be walked through. And beauty can cause problems. Remember Sarah and Abraham? He did it twice. Remember going through them studies, he did it twice. She must have been 50 to 60, something like that. And she walks into this place and Pharaoh says, bring her to the harem. And Abimelech says, yes, take her, we'll have her as my wife. She must have been absolutely beautiful, but twice he did it. Her beauty got trouble. She must have been beautiful. Esther was beautiful. She must have been, she got chosen out of 25 million women. To stand out of 25 million women. Wow, that's beauty. Haman, or as Begg calls him, the wicked Haman, is an Agagite who rose up in power as prime minister. He's a very proud man. You'll see he's a hater of Mordecai. He didn't just want to kill him, he wants to kill the whole Jewish race. Now we all know John 3:16. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. Genesis 3:15 is an important one as well. Satan, you shall strike his heel, but he will crush your head. Satan will strike his heel, but the Saviour will crush his head. And here we see in the story how Satan has a go, but he gets crushed through Haman. He is finished. And always remember, Oliver gave a great illustration the other week at our church of the chicken coop. If a fox gets into a chicken coop, it doesn't just kill one, it kills the whole lot. And although Satan is chained only to strike his heel, he wants to cause as much trouble as he can. He wants to cause bloodshed. He's not happy with just striking somebody's heel. His desire is, as we have in this, not just to kill Mordecai, to annihilate the Jews. And how many times do we see that? So in chapter 1 we've got a 6-month feast for all the rulers of his 127 provinces. They bring gifts and tribute, and it's a war planning summit to go to Greece. How lavish, what decor. In the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast for all his officials and servants, and the powers of Persia and Media and the nobles and the princes of the provinces were being brought before him. And he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the splendour of his excellent majesty for many days, 180 days. And you can imagine the people go, God, yes, we were wonderful. Because if they didn't do, this guy was a tyrant. 180 days they got, yes, oh, that's wonderful. He puts on a party then for 7 days to celebrate hosting this big event. And the thing was to drink as much wine as you wanted in gold cups with such lavish surroundings as we read. Then in verse 8, he ordered all officers of the household that they should do according to each man's pleasure. Now, how dangerous does that sound? Do according to each man's pleasure. Queen Vashti had a feast with the women separate in the royal palace that belonged to King Ahasuerus. How many warnings in Scripture do we have of drunken feasts and the problems? Belshazzar, drunk, bring out the goblets from the temple, bring out the sacred things and let's drink from them. Bang. King Herod and Salome dances before him. I want the head of John the Baptist. Many warnings. Me as a policeman could never turn up drunk. You'd be sent home. Proverbs 31 verse 4. It is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes to drink intoxicating drink, lest they drink and forget the law and pervert justice. So, when verse 10 comes along, on the 7th day, when the king was merry with wine, it's not good. When you understand this man, and you see his intention, and her refusal, it's only going to end bad. Bring Queen Vashti and tell her to wear her crown. Some have said, only her crown. And the refusal caused rage. This is disaster. Humiliated, and the repercussions this will cause. And he gathers his council together. He needs to keep face. He's drunk and he's angry. And worse still, he's got a group of yes men who are treading round on eggshells in front of him, trying to give him the right advice. No one dare say, well, it was a rash decision to ask your wife to come into that sort of party. Or what do you expect? What did you expect her to say? No. Proverbs 16 verse 32. He who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his own spirit than he who takes a city. So tick, tick, tick. This clock of God's providence is ticking here, and it's about to go tock, and it's going to be the first major event of the book of what God's doing. Proverbs 16 verse 33. The lot is cast into the lap, but every decision is from the Lord. So the clock is ticking. he now makes a decision that he's going to regret. This is their solution. And you'll see in the book, he listens easily to advice, this guy. Esther 1 verse 16, Queen Vashti has not only wronged the king, but also all the princes, for the queen's behaviour will come known to all women, so that they will despise their husbands in their eyes. Make a royal decree, Vashti shall no more come before the king, and let the king give a position to one more worthy than she. And how's he going to find that? In a beauty contest? And let it be written in the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be changed. Wait a minute, this big deal, Ahasuerus, this king, he can't control his own wife. Now he's making a law for everybody else to help them control things. Did he regret it? Chapter 2 verse 1. After these things, when the wrath of the king had subsided, he remembered what he had done and what he had decreed against her. Oops. And it cannot be changed because it's the law of the Medes and Persians. Men, you can. I'll tell you now, he ran for cover. He was the one who did this advice. This guy's a tyrant. When he has his war with Greece, which is coming up, he has them build a mobile bridge across the Hellespont for all his army to march across. And that's how he's going to get into Greece. And it's all planned and it's all set up and everything's ready. And there's a storm and the bridge gets broken. He has all the engineers who devised that bridge heads chopped off. He has the men going in, lashing the sea with red-hot whips. He has them throwing javelins into the sea because it's insubordinate to him. And he has them throwing shackles into the sea. This is who this guy is. Tick, 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 tock. Now he makes a decision he can't go back on. This is Ahasuerus' free decision. It's his decision. And he's now going to agree to another decision which is right up his street. Pick a new queen. Where from? Let's go and get the princesses from all these. No. This is how it's been done in the past. Let's have a beauty contest. We'll get you the best 400 best looking girls we can find all throughout the kingdom. And we'll bring her before you. And for 400 nights you can be with one on each night. Then you can pick. This is the one who deserves to be. What? How can this be? Where is God in this? Tick, 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 tick. It's their decisions. They are doing it. No rogue molecules. God is in total control. And the insignificant Jewish girl, Esther, is going to come to the fore. She's going to take centre stage. The nobody, 1 in 25 million, is now going to become queen. The most powerful woman in Persia, in this massive kingdom. Now, this is it. Is it her decision? No. Did Mordecai put her up for it? No. I can imagine men and suitors, all these 400 women that were taken, these young girls. I can think of fathers being killed. Who would let your daughter go to be with this tyrant? And he's going to have 400 one night each, and the 399 are going to go in the other harem, never to be seen again unless he calls for them. Finished. Their lives are over. And if you note, they are sought and they are taken. It's not a beauty contest. This guy also used to have 1,000 eunuchs a year that he took. 1,000 boys he made eunuchs to serve in his palace. He was a tyrant. He did what he wanted to. So for Esther, is this what she wanted? No. As she sat in that palace, in that harem, and it all started, she was in the blacksmith's shop, being bent. The fire was out. Mum, what am I going to do? No mum there. Mordecai's at the gate. He can't come anywhere near the place or he'll be killed. This is the harem. No men are allowed in there. But remember, tick, 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 tock. king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. Like the rivers of water, he turns it. The lot is cast, but the decision is from the Lord. Can you hear the melody of God's providence? Can you see it? Can you hear it? Brother, sister, what is happening in your life? We have a thing at the leaders' prayer meeting and we go around about the problems that we're facing. Oh, well, I've got this and I've got that. Some people say, well, everything's going good at the minute. What is happening or what is about to happen? Now, we thought yesterday was going to be a simple day. All of a sudden, Louise is called in to go with her dad to hospital and to A&E, and now he's in Salford Royal. You don't know what's coming. The phone call, the letter. Does he not see? Does he not order it? Corrie ten Boom was caught with her family, sheltering Jews in Holland. She was sent to solitary confinement for 4 months. Her dad died in that time, and her and her sister were sent to Ravensbrück concentration camp. Where's providence? What is happening here? What is God doing? It's in the blacksmith shop. At that place, 50,000 women were worked to death and 2,200 were gassed. The guards wouldn't even go in the dorms because of the lice of the place. There were massive overcrowding, and she watches her sister die in that place. She said she used to look up to the stars and say, Lord, have you forgotten me? Blacksmith shop. But when she looked in the rear view and looked back in time, she remembers the time she was able to smuggle that Bible in. And in that lice-infested place where the guard wouldn't come, she could break it open and talk to all the women who'd come round. God was working. My life is but a weaving between the Lord and me. I cannot choose the colours. He worketh steadily. Oft times he weaveth sorrow, and I in foolish pride forgets he sees the upper, and I the underside. Not till the loom is silent, and the shuttles cease to fly, shall God unroll the canvas and explain the reason why. The dark threads are as needful in the weaver's skillful hands as the threads of gold and silver in the pattern he has planned. So when we're in the blacksmith shop, we've got to trust. We've got to trust the things that we know, that he is in complete control. When that letter falls on the doorstep, tomorrow, when whatever happens, it is ordered by him. There's no rogue molecules, there's no accidents, there's no coincidences. He is in it all, and he's in it for our good. Sovereign ruler of the skies, ever gracious, ever wise, all my times are in your hand, all events at your command. His decree who formed the earth, fixed my first and second birth. Parents' place of birth and time, all appointed were by him. Plagues and death around me fly, till he bids I cannot die. Not a single arrow hits, till the God of love permits. O most gracious, wise and just, in your hands my life I trust. Have I something dearer still? I resign it to your will. And lastly, a word from Derek Prime. This is wonderfully comforting. He watches over the interests of each of his children as if he had no other creature for whom to care for. He watches over the interests of each of his children as if he had no other creature for whom to care for. Whatever's coming, it is from him. May the Lord bless his word to us.